Hello, and welcome to another session of What the? Anyway, today going to discuss the circumstances of how does one approach somewhat of an infatuation versus a general interest. What is the borderline between being that stalker versus a logical approach in getting to know someone that may not know you exist? So, first of all, in the era of the internet and so on and so forth, it's different than when I was younger. Because when I was younger, what I would do is it was similar to a circumstance of a online type atmosphere. Although what I would do is I remember there was one girl that I liked when I was younger, and I saw her somewhere, and I think I saw her picture in the newspaper, and she was an athlete of the week. But she didn't go to my school, and she went to a school that was, maybe about 15 miles from where I lived. Although I saw her and I thought she was an attractive young lady. And so then I began to ask people in my school if they knew her that played sports with her and so on and so forth. And eventually I got her phone number from one of those persons that I had asked. And so then out of the blue, I called her on the phone and talked to her and introduced myself and told her who I knew. And then at that point, we got to know each other somewhat via the phone. I only spoke with her a few times on the phone. We never met in person, and that was the extent of that, I would say, circumstance. We never ever came together. Although, just in speaking with her on the phone, I soon began to realize that, you know what, her and I don't have that much in common. And so then at that point, I just stopped calling her, and I don't think she ever called me ever. So at that point, I was just like, yeah, it was a forced circumstance on my part. And she didn't know me, but I called her out of the blue and wanted to introduce myself and chased her. So I don't know if I could have done anything that would have enticed her. I guarantee you, maybe if I would have made the effort to go where she was, then at that point it would have been, I would say, a better opportunity for me to make my case and why she should have gotten to know me. So, what I'm actually trying to say in regards to the whole opportunity to introduce yourself to a person and utilizing the internet as the protocol for the introduction, it might be a opportunity where that person could find out in backtracking to see, okay, how was the contact first made, if they ever drew interest in you. And then at that point, start to understand, okay, is this person making good comments? Are they actually on the same page as me? Do they appreciate what I'm doing at this specific moment? Do they understand fully and appreciate my, the internet calling that I am trying to, whatever might be, precedent at that moment? So, what I'm trying to say is that a circumstance of being in front of one another is the best possible circumstance there is. And then at that point, you can then start to forge a friendship. And knowing that, obviously, because we all have the ideal circumstance on how we would like things to unfold with that person. Obviously it can go to the extent of, how far into the future you want to look. Do you go into the circumstance of, okay, do we cohabitate? Do we, where do we go for fun? What do we do for this or that? How do we approach, children and so on and so forth? How many kids what are we going to, and that just becomes more detailed components in that amount of time. And I went through that amount of time in 30 seconds into, how many years ahead. So that is why you have to get in front of one another and fully understand one another, and then you really appreciate that opportunity for a mutual attraction, because obviously just speaking with one another and just like, hey, they seem like a nice person, blah blah blah, but until you actually involve yourself in somewhat of an activity and participating with that person to see how they approach a situation comparative to what is your approach. And the whole circumstance could be as simple as tying your shoe, or how do they, do they eat tacos? How do they eat the taco? Do they lean their head to the side? How do they eat a taco? I mean, what do they put on their taco? What do they put on all their stuff? Do you have the same tastes for the same food, and so on and so forth? So you really have to interact with that other person and be with them, participating in a situational opportunity where you can exude your own personal traits, they exude their own personal traits, and then you look at the commonality of those traits. Do I do this similar to her doing that? And then at that point, it is something that you build upon. So this has been another session of What the